Hi, welcome to 6 for 60, the show where I tell you 6 things that I love about Star Trek in honor of the 60th anniversary of the franchise. Can you believe it? We're at episode 20 already, almost halfway through the 52 episodes for 2026. That's kind of crazy, but here we are. So, today I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to talk to you about artificial intelligence. It's a big topic of discussion now in the news with everybody, with the building of the data centers, the fights against the data centers, whatever side of the line you fall on. I think this will be an interesting episode to discuss. So, we're going to launch right into it. Number 1 with TOS Season 2, Episode 24, The Ultimate Computer. My sister and I like to refer to this as the I am great, you are great episode. And people do look at us like we're crazy. Sometimes when one of us is having a little meltdown, we'll hug the other one and go, I am great, you are great. But anyway. And so in this episode, Dr. Daystrom, who designed the current computer systems for the, I think they're called Constitution class. I could be wrong. Whatever, the Enterprise ships, for all of those ships. He designed a new computer system, something bigger and better, called M5. And M5 is supposed to make operating these starships super easy. You'll go from needing, a crew of 400 to just 4 people. Basically, and you definitely wouldn't need a captain. So, unfortunately, as they're testing M5, M5 has a little bit of a problem there, and it sees everything around it as a threat, and it begins blowing up other ships even after the test is concluded. Now, sadly, the new M5, the engrams were based on Dr. Daystrom's own mind, and he has a few issues. As a child prodigy, he felt that he was overrun, overlooked, and other people were building on his work, and he was being left behind in history. So the computer ended up, really needing a hug and some therapy. And we see kind of the same thing in Lower Decks, Season 3, Episode 10, The Stars at Night, where, again, the Cali class of ships are going to be put out of commission because these new Texas class ships run with 0 human intervention. And again, we run into the same system where they were kind of programmed by a Looney Tune. We find out that the computer systems are based on Rutherford's programming that he built for Badgie, and we all know how Badgie turned out. Again, we see where the AI to control these ships just run amok. And we, at the end of the day, decide we can't replace people with these new computer systems. Also part of number 1 is TOS Season 1, Episode 7, What Are Little Girls Made Of? Where Christine's fiance, Roger Corby, finds an ancient civilization, and he thinks he's discovered the secret to eternal life, because this ancient society found a way to put human consciousness into these artificial bodies. And that ancient society was served by these robots, these androids, who at the end of the day end up being a little too humanoid, and decided that they had to kill their creators. So again, the TOS era was not a good time for humans as they deal with artificial intelligence. I didn't throw in the androids from Mud's Women, because that kind of sort of turned out okay. Again, I wish we had more Lower Decks. I would have loved for them to go back and visit the androids from Mud's Women. Was that the episode, or was that with the 3 ladies? I might have the title mixed up, but we know the one. Where it's Norman Compute. But yeah, so I really appreciated how the TOS era approached the idea of artificial intelligence. They didn't sugarcoat it. They didn't make it seem like, oh, the future is going to be wonderful and amazing because we'll be able to program, some creature or something that has real intelligence to essentially just become a new era of slaves. And we'll see that discussion later on in some of the other franchises, some of the other episodes and shows. So if we go to number 2, Voyager had a good time with artificial intelligence. In season 2, episode 17, Dreadnought, they had a living bomb. It was a whole ship actually that was really created by the Cardassians that they stole and reprogrammed to then go attack the Cardassians. And I'm going to assume that the caretaker sucked that through as well when it was, gathering up ships. And it just ended up there in the, Delta Quadrant, wandering around looking for the enemy to attack. And B'Elanna, who originally reprogrammed it, now has to go in and try to undo it before it destroys an innocent planet full of people. And it's very interesting because this, you see the progression through the show where the ship remembers B'Elanna. It knows B'Elanna very well because she was working with it, and they battle back and forth. And of course, in good Star Trek fashion, B'Elanna's dedication and willingness to give up her own life and her technical prowess, they end up disarming it before bad things happen. So also in Voyager season 5, episode 25, we have Warhead, where I believe this might be one of the first away missions that the Doctor goes on. And he finds this living bomb. Again, wartime, we are doing crazy things and not thinking about the consequences. And so this bomb, again, does not know that the war is over. And it actually ends up taking over the Doctor's matrix and threatens to blow up the ship if they don't allow him to make it to his destination to blow up the enemy. And again, technical prowess by the crew, and a little psychotherapy as well from the Doctor, and they managed to save the day at the end of the show. And then also in season 2, episode 23, The Thaw, which is one of my favorite Voyager episodes, and I know a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people just feel like it's over the top and crazy, but I really appreciate it. Where you have this crazy clown AI. So this society needed to go into hibernation for a while, and they had what they thought was an entertainment program. And it had an ability to learn and adjust to help the people while they're in stasis. Well, Little Clown decided it didn't want to be alone. That it had the power in this situation, and it would not release some of the sleepers from their mental prison. And at the end of the day, Janeway, with the help of the Doctor, and I believe B'Elanna as well, they find a way to outsmart the clown. There's a time delay so that he thinks he has Janeway trapped in the Matrix, and he doesn't. There's a little delay, a little redundancy in there, so that she has an opportunity to disconnect, and he's kind of just left with an echo of her mind. So again, super horrible, something that that society had built for good, thought they were doing a great thing for themselves, and it went south in a really bad way really quickly. So what else do we have? Number 3, we've got TNG season 6 episode 9, The Quality of Life, where they discover that their little tools that they have built, the exocomps, are actually alive. And again, TNG had many great conversations about what is life, how do we define life, who has a right to life. It's really, I think, one of the stronger points of TNG. And at the end of the day, they realize, hey, the exocomps are alive, they're sentient and intelligent, and they allow them to make their own decisions about whether or not they want to risk their lives to help the Federation or this particular research station complete their mission. And then in Lower Decks, we see them come back in season 1, episode 10, No Small Parts, where now the exocomps are, I believe, members of the Federation, and they have their own thriving society. And it's also hilarious because the first member we meet of this thriving exocomp society is Peanut Hamper. And Peanut Hamper is kind of an ass. So I also thought that was just fun. And we did see some of it in Voyager with some of the photonics where, you know, they weren't great, you know, folks. So I always thought that's nice because a lot of times when we get science fiction and they picture the future and we have these lovely, helpful robots, kind of like with, you know, Mudd's Women, and they're, you know, they're perfect. They're happy and cheerful and always trying to do good. And here Peanut Hamper is just like, nah, I'm just out here for myself. I'm not trying to help you guys. And, you know, it's a bad thing just to be, what did she call us? Bags of water or flesh bags, something to that offense, you know, because she was able to get away from the danger, or so she thought. She ended up stranded out in space. But anyway, really funny. And then, of course, I think the exocomps show up in 2 more episodes in Lower Decks. And we even get to see one in Starfleet Academy. So all of that is really fun. So where are we now? We're on number 4 with TNG, with Data and Lore. Too many episodes to list. And they also show up in the movies. I don't even know what to say about this. Because I love my sister so much. The relationship between Data and Lore has always really been super sad to me, but we're not talking about relationships today. We're just talking about them as artificial beings. So, poor Data. We are very familiar with the famous TNG episode where Picard has to fight for Data's right to exist as a sentient being, separate and apart from his creator. The fact that he is a member of Starfleet, he is not designated as a tool. He is a member and is granted the rights of any other sentient being in Starfleet. And even though he went through all of that, and even though Lore had the emotion chip for quite a while, they just could not find a bond. That was so horrible. And then Data makes a daughter who ends up expiring. Again, also really horrible and sad. And then finally in Picard, Data just really has grown as a sentient being. He's grown emotionally, and he just realizes that Lore is always going to be Lore, can't be anything else, and he tricks him into ultimately giving up his own life. Again, really gut-wrenching. For me, anyway. Yeah, I'm overly attached to these fictional characters. But again, I love Star Trek. and that they don't give us just these one-dimensional characters with artificial intelligence. We really get to explore how they live and grow and define themselves in their own societies. And we see a lot of that in number 5, Voyager, Picard, and also Starfleet Academy with the photonics. Starting off with the Doctor on Voyager. One of my most favorite episodes is where the Doctor kind of loses his mind because Harry Kim, and I forgot the other character's name, are injured. They both have the same chance of survival, and the Doctor has to make a choice as to who he's going to save, because he can only save one, and he chooses to save Harry. And then he kind of goes crazy. And they start off by trying to just reprogram him, and he keeps going crazy every time he notices the discrepancy, and he comes back to, why did he let this other person die? Why did he choose Harry Kim? And finally, Janeway makes the choice. Hey, if this was a biological crew member having this same type of meltdown, I would work with them. I would give them time to process. I would help them process. I just wouldn't lobotomize them and get rid of the memory. And so she sits and the crew sits. They take time to allow the Doctor to understand and process these emotions and come to terms with the decision that he made. And I believe that's when Janeway really started to think of him as a sentient being and not just a tool, not just another computer program on the ship that she was able to utilize for their medical necessities. And we see this in Voyager Season 7, Episode 20, Author, where the crew is now in contact with Earth. And some folks, unscrupulous folks on Earth, have taken the Doctor's holonovel work, and they're just using it without his permission and changing things and not giving him any credit because they don't count him as a person. And then of course we see, in Picard and Starfleet Academy again, where they're photonics with a whole society there. And at the end of, I'm going to assume that this is not going to be a spoiler, that everyone has already seen Starfleet Academy, and they know that Sam and the Doctor, form this beautiful relationship, and through it healed Sam and gave her the ability to navigate through her emotions and her experiences at the Academy. So, very interesting. And finally, here we are at number 6 with Discovery. Too many episodes to list. I'm going to talk about Zora. And how this data repository that the crew of the Discovery found was integrated into the ship, which ultimately became sentient. So far, Discovery's over. We never saw Zora go, crazy or become antagonistic towards the crew in any manner. And as far as we know, is just sadly sitting out on the edge of nowhere, waiting for her crew will never come back. And probably the most reasonable and loving artificial intelligence that we've seen in the Star Trek universe. So let me know what you think about artificial intelligence and our future. I've included a couple of comments, a couple of articles, links to articles down in the comments, because there's just a lot of discussion right now what should we use our data centers, these huge data centers people want to build for? What good is it, for creating art, music, or literature, when that should really be a human endeavor only? Agree? Disagree? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. One of my most, and I'll see if I can find the article, if this was many years ago, when we put some artificial intelligence online, and then it had to be taken down in less than 48 hours because it had gone from, general conversations to just being horribly, hatefully racist and sexist and, homophobia. Just name it. And our little jaunt into artificial intelligence kind of seemed to reflect the worst of society. So let me know if you think, what would we do? What could we do to make sure that in the future our artificial intelligence doesn't turn against us, or take some of the joy of being human away from us? What should we do, and how should we mold it so that it serves us to our best end? So I look forward to talking with you all in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Live long and prosper, my dear friends.